everybody. I hope you are having such a wonderful day. I am so excited to be joined here today with the lovely Christina Valenzuela. Just to introduce you a little bit to Christina before we dive into our conversation. Christina is the owner and creative director of Pearl and Thistle, where she offers a unique blend of theology and science to bring better body literacy to Catholic families and parishes. She has been a certified instructor in the Boston Crosscheck method of natural family planning since 2013, and her signature course, Cycle Prep, was a 2021 OSV Innovation Challenge finalist. She holds an undergraduate degree in philosophy and theology from the University of Notre Dame, as well as a master's in theological studies from Harvard Divinity School. She's a life professed member of the lay fraternities of St. Dominic and resides with her husband and 4 children outside of Boston. Welcome, Christina. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me, Rita. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Yay, me too. I was just sharing with Christina right before we started our recording that just the other day I was putting away some piles of things, and I found this really beautiful resource that Christina wrote for dioceses to help them with implementing NFP on the parish level, and it's just so lovely. I just absolutely love it, and I love that my diocese sent it to me to be able to send to my pastor. It was so neat. What a God moment.
I know, isn't that funny when you're just going through things and you're like, oh yeah, there was this connection before I even knew we had a connection. I love that. Yeah.
So true. So, first of all, too, I have to say, because my husband will watch this later, we are huge Notre Dame fans, so go Irish.
Excellent. Good.
Obviously praying for Notre Dame daily, but so tell me what got you started in the world of NFP and cycle charting.
Oh my goodness. Well, when you look back on your life, it's kind of funny because you can say, like, this totally makes sense. This trajectory in retrospect fits with who I am and the mission that God called me to do. In the moment, it feels very haphazard. So if you're ever in a season of life where you're like, I'm not sure what I'm doing, I think take solace in that. That's okay. I got trained as an NFP instructor because I had a really, really, really hard time finding an NFP instructor. And to be perfectly honest, I was just really despondent at the lack of resources that we had available and how hard it was for me to find the help that I needed when I was postpartum and like trying to find a method. And it was just one of those things where my instructor, whom I finally found, thank God for her, she just encouraged me. She was like, you might want to become an instructor. And I was like, really? I could totally do that. And so that's how I got into it. It was basically just me seeing that there was a need and wanting to be part of the solution and feeling like I probably had a skill set to be able to do it. That was a few years of really not taking many clients. Back when I got trained in 2013, it was not as standard to do remote instruction. So we weren't working with Zoom. We weren't working with these other telecommunication and things. So it was really in person. And to be perfectly honest, Boston is not exactly ripe with a ton of people who want to learn NFP. There's a lot of Catholics here, but the clientele they weren't pounding down the door. So it was something that I very quietly did for a number of years and was just kind of this ministry that I did for friends who were engaged or for the few people who would reach out to me from the diocese. And then all that changed in 2018, really. I took a step away from parish work and I decided to just focus more on the NFP side. And I started realizing, wow, there's a lot more need out there than I thought. Like when I finally gave myself space to think about it, I was like, oh boy, we need education for these people much, much sooner than NFP. Our parishes need to be doing a better job. And that's when I kind of like the fire got lit inside my belly. And I was like, this is like my mission. So we can dive a little bit more into that, but that's the short version. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love it so much. That's so cool. So just to, for those that aren't familiar with Boston Crosscheck, can you tell me, like, what are the pillars? Is it mucus only, temperature? What are the...
So Boston Crosscheck is a little bit unique. Boston Crosscheck uses cervical fluid, and we use basal body temperature, and we use hormone monitoring. So Boston Crosscheck started out as an in-house method, I think in the 80s, maybe even the late 70s in the Archdiocese of Boston, when it was much more common for dioceses to have their own methods. So it started out as symptothermal. And then after Marquette did their research with the Clear Blue monitor, The developer of Boston Crosscheck in the Archdiocese actually got training directly through them about what they learned with the monitor. And then she was able to incorporate that research into the protocols that we had done. So the kind of principle of Boston Crosscheck is that all of our clients learn all three of those signs. We give them all of those tools to have in their toolkit, and then they get to choose whether they want to use all three of them or if they want to use any two of them in combination as a cross check for each other.
Wow, very cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really great. I definitely have clients that will come to me with doing the mucus with the crate model and doing the monitor. And I'm
Yep.
like, okay, y'all. Like usually we have to,
Stick with one method. Yeah.
Yes. So that's really interesting. That's really neat to know. Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you decided to do more into that that supporting for others, what has that looked like for you? What has that journey been?
Yeah, it started out with the parish planning packet that you found in that little stack of things. So the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to say, let's take a step back and let's say, like, where do I actually think that parishes need areas of support? So that packet introduces, like, what are the roles in a parish, and what are the kind of three key areas where parishes could offer more support, better support for natural family planning, and how would you plan to do that, right? So that little workbook was kind of like my starting place for even thinking about the problems and how I might be able to offer more solutions. And then from there, it was like, well, it seems to me like my obvious next step is to start offering what I like to call body literacy education for young girls. So doing cycle and period education in an age appropriate and kind of gradual developmental way, so that we can start learning all of these things about our bodies way before NFP. Like, we need to start way sooner. So it started with that packet and kind of thinking through some of the problems that allowed me to process where I thought we could do better. And so I basically have used that packet to kind of build out my business.
That's beautiful. So
Yeah.
your cycle prep curriculum, who is that geared towards? Like what ages?
Yeah. So cycle prep is for pre-menarcheal girls. So girls before they've started their first period. It really is a prep course. And so it's crafted for girls age 9 to 11 as kind of the key demographic. My girls were right in that age range when I wrote the curriculum. And so they previewed a lot of things with me. And I was very blessed that that curriculum actually got picked up by our Sunday Visitor when they ran their OSB Innovation Challenge in 2021 and made it through to the final round. So it was nice. Yeah, it was really nice to get the training and to realize that other Catholics out there realize, like, this is something of value for us.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I'm on, just the nature of where I live. There's several different dioceses that are very close together. So I'm on a couple different, NFP advisory committees for a few different dioceses. And the conversations, I feel like more and more are realizing, like, we really have to bring this back, right? We can't be throwing NFP at people in this engaged time. We need to, and likewise, what I see a lot with women with infertility or reproductive health issues is how sad they are when they find out about charting their cycles. They find out about what they can do to help support their own health, and they've been 10 years into an infertility journey or struggling, and having used the pill in the past or something else that was, at best a Band-Aid solution to try to get to the root cause of that. And yet, if they had just known more about what was good and normal and healthy in their cycles from these young, tender ages, perhaps that could have helped to save some of those years of heartbreak as well.
Yeah. And yeah, so I start with cycle prep, and then the next thing is an invitation for teens to learn how to chart their cycles, not for fertility. We're not teaching them NFP. I don't teach calculations for a fertile window, but like how to observe for ovulation as a healthy sign and what that might mean. Because as an NFP instructor, I'm sure you see a lot of the exact same things, right? We have women who have PCOS, they have endometriosis, and they don't get diagnosed with these things until relatively late in life, but they were already exhibiting signs of these things as high schoolers. And because high school and the teenage years, like, people just think, oh, teen cycles are weird anyways. They put them on the pill and they're like, okay, just wait till your cycle matures and then everything will clear up. Well, that's not the case.
Yeah.
So that second aspect of my my body literacy curriculum, that charting for girls, really is aimed at making sure that teens understand what is normal to have as variations in their cycles, and like when are the times when you really do need to reach out to somebody and not get that band-aid solution, but actually get the investigative help that you need now, so that
Yeah.
you're not dealing with infertility 10 years, 15 years down the road and have no idea.
Yeah, for sure. It's so true. Yeah, and I think too, like people just oftentimes have no idea of the snowball effect that can happen,
Yes.
right, as a result of like going on the pill and then having post-pill syndrome that can be even worse sometimes than what
Mm-hmm.
when they went onto it, and so much more for sure. So tell me about your new book that you're working on right now.
Yeah. Well, one of the beautiful things about the OSV Innovation Challenge is that I then started chatting with some folks at OSV, and I found an editor who was very interested in my work. And I pitched a book to her. I said, I think there's a space for Catholic women where we kind of need to be able to explore our cycles and our periods as something that's actually good, because I think society tells us these are just a pain. These are
Yeah.
a nuisance. It's the curse, right? And we
Mhm.
internalize so much of that, but our Catholic faith tells us that our bodies are fundamentally good, that
Mhm.
our bodies are fundamentally worthy of healing
Yeah.
and of love and of the touch of Christ and of reverence, a certain degree of reverence for the image of God that lives within us. And so that's what the book is about. It is really about exploring this space of like this fundamental experience that we have as women with these cycles and periods,
Mm.
how that shifts through our life, the struggles that are associated with them, and how we can actually become more fully appreciative of ourselves as daughters of God,
Yeah.
as creatures who are made in the image of God, by understanding this aspect of the
Mm.
way that our body functions.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that so much. And that's something in my nutritional therapy, we spend a lot of time, like, as you know, people come to me like feeling sick or unwell, right? Or
Mhm.
having some issues with their reproductive health. And we really take that time to help them understand like these mindsets we have about how we view our body, how we view healing, even
Mhm.
how we view these different things as broken or bad or wrong. Like we really have to be reconciled with that on that mindset level in order for us to really be able to do that work our body needs to be able to restore healing and wholeness. But
Mhm.
it's such a it's something that I think we're starting to hear more about even in the secular world, but it's so often permeated with New Ageism that I
Yeah.
think it's really important for those of us in the church to really start to stand up and step out into this world, because it really is like a void there, right? Like
Mhm.
starting to hear more like, oh, you should chart your cycles because you don't want all those hormones, and yet there's this drop off point, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a totally different approach. There's a totally different theological formation there or lack of,
Mhm.
that's
Yep.
really causing this further damage that can be done there, instead of this healing, right, that the Lord wants for us, this spiritual healing, this
Mhm.
physical, emotional, right, like all
Yep.
of these things tying that together. I love that so much. That's so beautiful.
Thank you. Well, I hope the end product is worthy of the idea at least. So, yep.
Well, we'll pray for
Working
that.
on it. Thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah, thank
so
you.
exciting. Yeah. So tell me more about how my viewers can find you and follow you more.
Right. So I'm pretty active on social media. You can find me. So my business name is Pearl and Thistle.
Love.
That has a story in and of itself. I don't know if we want to go into that, but Pearl and Thistle. And that's my website, pearlandthistle.com, at Pearl and Thistle on Instagram, at Pearl and Thistle on Facebook. So you can find me in all of those places pretty easily.
Love it. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to. I believe I was following you before you rebranded into Pearl and
Yes.
Crystal. So
Yeah.
tell me about that, how that came about.
Yeah, so um I was trying to figure out, I was like, what do I want this business to be? Like I'm not entirely sure what it is. I didn't want to give it a specifically NFP name because I had this inkling that it was going to be bigger than just natural family planning instruction. And I started thinking about, well, like where do I don't know, where are the influences in my life? And something that really struck me was I'm a direct descendant of St. Margaret of Scotland.
Wow.
Yes. So and she I didn't find that out until I was almost 30. And I won't say how old I am now, but I had seen, even before I realized that we were related through the genealogy work that my mom had done, she has been a very guiding force in my life in a lot of really interesting ways. So I'm a lay Dominican, and I ended up taking the name Zelly Margaret for these two mom saints who I really wanted to aspire to be. And Margaret in particular has kind of come to the forefront in a very strong way in the last few years. And so I was thinking, like, how can I honor her? Like, there's something about her and her personality and the way that she balanced mission and family that just really speaks to me. And so I thought, well, she's the Pearl of Scotland. Like, that's a great name. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, and Malcolm, her husband, like his symbol is the thistle, the Scottish royal symbol. So I was like, you know what? Like, these are my family. And like, maybe I'm just being called to somehow honor the legacy of my family in this way. And so that's who Pearl and Thistle are. It's St. Margaret and King Malcolm of Scotland. And so they're like the special patrons of my work. I don't know what they have to do with body literacy. I have no idea. I'm going to leave that one up to, they can explain that to me later. But but yeah, so that's who they're named after. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love that. That's so beautiful. So fun.
Margaret's gonna have to just tell me. I'm gonna be like, so what about this thing? I don't know.
Yes, I love all these connections, all these different, like with our physical Catholic family here on earth, but also then beyond.
Yeah. The very real. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that so much. Well, anything else you want to share, Christina, as anything else you would want to say to those that will watch this later?
Yeah, I just want to invite you, if you're working with Rita and you stumble upon questions about your cycles and you're just not entirely sure where to turn, please check out Pearl and Thistle resources. I do have a charting for single women book. So again, taking this principle that like we don't have to look for a fertile window all the time in order to get valuable information. So I have a handbook that's charting for single women, and it includes some of the concepts that I'm going to be including in my book, just kind of priming us to see our cycles as something more than a nuisance, right? To see them as something worthy of our attention as Catholic women and as part of how we're made in the image of God. So please check out those resources and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I would love to connect.
Yay, beautiful. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Christina. This is so fun.
Thank you, Rita, for having me. It's a delight. A joy to talk to you.